I think there are evidence that, yes, when you do stem cell treatment, it can help your body. Actually, it's stimulating your own body stem cells to help repair. That's why it works so well for osteoarthritis. They actually transfer their energy to your own body stem cells, even transfer the mitochondria. Then your own body stem cells can be waken up, because when you're in 50s, 60s, your own body stem cells is also 50, 60 years old. And then they can now divide as well as the umbilical cord stem cells.
Hello and welcome to the Biohacker Podcast. I'm Ezra Ulagich, your host and founder of Biohacker. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohacker is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Dr. Yi, welcome to the Biohacker Podcast. Your family has practiced traditional Chinese medicine for, 17 generations now? That's a long time. How was it growing up in that environment, and how do you think that shaped the way you think about health today?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I actually grew up with both traditional Chinese medicine in my family and also Western medicine, because my grandparents on both my parents' sides, they were practicing Western medicine in China. They both went to Western medicine school. And so when I grew up, I suffered some kind of kidney conditions and some coughing issues after I caught cold very easily. Then always my grandparents would tell me to take antibiotics for my cough. And then it didn't solve the problem. And then I eventually had to go to Chinese medicine doctors to get formulas. And then usually that resolved in 2 to 3 days. So even back then, I also realized there were many, many things in traditional Chinese medicine that can offer relief to many conditions that somehow Western medicine, they just don't have solutions for. So I was always interested in both science and traditional Chinese philosophy, Eastern philosophy, Taoism. So I actually was studying both Taoism and science when I was a teenager. I was reading a lot of books. That's when I think I was very into the philosophy of Taoism and the foundation of Chinese medicine. But at the same time, I was still very intrigued by modern science. So I was very into biology, cell molecules. So that's why I initially wanted to pursue a career in science. And that's how I went to United States to study pathology.
Yeah, so you did train in Western pathology at Brown University before embracing regenerative medicine. What changed your perspective? Why did you decide to pursue those studies?
So I always wanted to solve the fundamental mechanism of disease, because I thought if you know the mechanism of disease, what causes a lot of conditions, including a lot of aging-related degenerative conditions, then you will be able to relieve human beings from suffering of all these conditions. So I was very intrigued by scientists back in 1800 or even earlier than that. They were studying things and finding out a lot of knowledge that we know nowadays, but we didn't know before their time. And I was thinking I wanted to be one of those people, and I wanted to study the mechanism of disease. So that's how I ended up learning pathology. But then I realized actually the real pathology in Western medicine, they're not really studying the root cause of the condition. They're still focusing on the symptoms. So that's when I switched back to Chinese medicine, because I know in Chinese medicine, we're always looking into the root cause of the conditions.
Yeah, it seems to be a real problem with Western medicine, I feel, because quite often we're seeing people ending up with, multiple diseases and being unwell. And I sometimes feel that that could have been avoided if they'd have taken more of a preventative approach to managing health. What are your thoughts on Western medicine as it is currently today and the fact that it is more reactive rather than proactive in managing disease?
Yeah, Western medicine, even nowadays, they're still mostly managing the symptoms. Then they only start treating you when you already develop symptoms that they can detect and they can test either from blood tests or MRI or neurological tests. Then they determine, oh, you have this condition. Then they actually give you medications or surgeries to manage the symptoms. A lot of times, the medication they give you for your symptoms actually are just band aid. It's not really trying to look for the cause of the condition, the symptoms. So that's why, a lot of times, even like as simple as cholesterol or blood pressure, the medication is just sometimes they work, sometimes they don't even work. Then people have to be on the medication for the rest of their life, and it doesn't really solve why they develop these conditions. So that's the main reason why I became disenchanted with studying pathology and Western science, because I feel it doesn't give me the fulfillment that I was looking for to solve the fundamental cause of conditions so that I can help people and really alleviate their conditions, not just by symptoms, not just like taking painkillers to alleviate the pain. It's more like you need to look into the root cause why people have these pain conditions or why people develop these conditions over years. Then we need to address the root cause of the conditions.
What does regenerative health actually mean, though?
So I didn't actually get into stem cell treatment until 2021. But once I was introduced into stem cell and stem cell treatments, I realized the stem cell treatment concept was rooted in traditional Chinese medicine or ancient healing practices. The concept is not new, but the technology is new. So back 6,000 years ago, even people who developed the whole system of Eastern philosophy and Chinese medicine, they were already looking into immortality and how to extend their life, how to live the maximum lifespan of 120 years. So even in Yellow Emperor's book, written back 6,000 or 5,000 years ago, they were already clearly mentioned that the maximum human lifespan is 120 years. And according to another mentor I talked to, he actually is very into Christianity and Bible. So he said even in Bible, it mentioned that the maximum human lifespan is 120 years. And recently, according to our study, the study from modern biology also says, confirmed that the maximum human lifespan is 120 years. But of course, there are all these biohackers or people looking for immortality even nowadays. They think they can extend human lifespan to 150, 180, or even more than that. We just have to wait and see. I'm not sure whether we can reach that. So I know your show is called Biohacker. So I don't know what kind of methods you're trying to teach people or promote in your show.
Well, I suppose I focus a lot on getting the foundations right first, making sure that you're getting good sleep, making sure that you're getting good nutrition, making sure that you're looking after your brain. I kind of look at it from a holistic perspective, I suppose, a little bit similar to your philosophy. I'm quite passionate about that because I think that if we don't have the foundations right, then we can't get any sort of optimization of our health if we don't have the foundations right.
Exactly.
I'm really fascinated about stem cells because it really is quite a hot topic, not just at the moment, but probably has been a hot topic for last few years, I'd suggest, and particularly in the longevity space. As you've mentioned, biohackers focus on trying to extend their health span. It's not just about extending your life, but extending the years that you're able to live well longer so that you're not having chronic disease for an extended period of time. Can you explain in simple terms what stem cells actually are and what they do for those that don't know?
The stem cells we use in our treatments are from umbilical cord. And also they are called mesenchymal stem cells. Because in the birth tissue, you can also have some placenta stem cells that are in between the mesenchymal and embryonic stem cells. So there are at least 4 or 5 different kinds of stem cells existing naturally. So we do not want to confuse stem cell with just stem cell is stem cell. Actually, there are different types and then they have different functions. And also the main difference is whether they are pluripotent or multipotent, because embryonic stem cells, hematopoietic stem cells that actually makes your blood cells in your body, then they reside in your bone marrow, they can become pluripotent. So once they are pluripotent, they can actually grow into anything. Then when that happens, sometimes when you introduce pluripotent stem cells into people, then some of them actually can grow into tumor or cancer. So that's the concern that a lot of people, when they mention stem cell treatment, they have because they heard about it. But in reality, when we use mesenchymal stem cells, as long as our sample used in the treatment do not have any contamination of other types of pluripotent stem cells, these type of stem cells, they are not pluripotent, they are only multipotent. So then they will not grow into a lot of, any kind of cells. So they will not be tumorigenic. So that's the main difference between the kind of stem cells we use. But then a simple analogy what stem cells can do to your body is that they're like the new firewood into your cauldron. So your body, human body in Chinese medicine is like a wood stove. And then the center of the wood stove is around your kidney area. That also includes the adrenal gland. So your body has this energy circulating throughout your living years. And this energy is burning. But when you age, this fireplace, the fire actually starts diminishing. So that's when your body starts having a lot of degenerative conditions because the energy is not sufficient enough to supply all the energy you need for your daily activities and also for the regeneration of the tissue and the tissue repair. So if you can supplement this burning stove with new firewood, so this is like the image is like it's not really making this fire to burn forever, but you can supply the energy to this fire so that it doesn't diminish as fast as if you don't supply any new firewood. So in this sense, then, because you can supply this extra energy, so I think a lot of biohacking methods we're using now, including red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, and a lot of supplements, is to help the mitochondria function, which is, in a sense, is to increase the energy production. So that is also to help the fire burning better, and it's not diminishing as fast. So then that's how you can prevent the degenerative conditions associated with aging. And that's how you can increase the health span instead of just increasing the lifespan.
There is a lot of marketing around stem cell therapies. How can consumers distinguish evidence-based treatments from hype?
So that's the part that's very difficult because I believe even in Australia and in many European countries, all these treatments are not approved by any regulatory agencies in any of these countries. So far, there are only very, very limited treatments using stem cells or even mesenchymal stem cells approved by any FDA or any equivalent of FDA that can be applied clinically. So for example, I believe in Japan, they approved using umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells to treat organ transplant rejection, people who are refractory to the conventional immunosuppressive drugs, and then they don't respond to these immunosuppressive drugs, they still reject the organs. Then they use these mesenchymal stem cells to regulate their immune system so that they don't reject the organs transplanted. And then in Korea, they also approved using mesenchymal stem cells to treat osteoarthritis of the knees. But other than that, most countries, they don't have any clinical approved procedures by the government agency or regulatory agencies. So that's when things become a little bit wild, because it's very difficult for consumers to discern what is true, what is just pure marketing and scam. But there are many, many things you can spot if you're doing research. So a lot of people I come in contact with, before they actually do any treatment related to stem cells, they actually would have done tons of research on their own. And then they would talk to different providers to get all the information they need. And even that, sometimes it's very difficult because there are so many marketing like influencers affecting people's opinions. So it is very difficult. That's why there are people saying, stem cells treatments are not proven, so you should not do it because it's not regulated. But then on the other hand, from my point of view, or some other people who are willing to try, they actually see the potential, just like what I said, you're adding new firewood into your burning cauldron to supply more energy to your body that you cannot obtain from other methods. So even traditional Chinese medicine, meditation, or a lot of all these advanced treatment in ancient practices, they just cannot replace what stem cells can give your body as adding the new firewood into your burning stove.
Why is that, do you think? Because as we get older, we do see a decline in mitochondria, which I suppose translates into that lack of energy, that we start to feel that we don't have as much energy as we used to when we were younger. There is some thought out there that there are supplementations that can support mitochondrial health or improve energy. So, as an example, NMN is one that comes to mind. When you compare a supplement that professes to support mitochondrial health as opposed to stem cells, are we doing a comparison that's, as we say here in Australia, like apples but like apples, or are they two totally different approaches? Is stem cell by far superior in supporting mitochondrial health compared to any other method?
So in my opinion, because I actually do the NAD injection, and I've done NAD intranasal application. So I try different things. I also do red light therapy regularly, at least 3 times a week, if not every day. So I combine a lot of different things. It's not like stem cell treatment is one magic bullet. So that's actually one of the things I wrote in my book, Regeneration Effect, because not a single method in health and longevity practice, even from ancient practice, can be a single magic bullet. So what you need to do is you have to combine all the methods available that's suitable to your particular body type. And then, as you mentioned, like, is NAD or NMN or NR, all these supplements to help the mitochondria function, are they the same as stem cell? I would say no, because in my belief or in my clinical experience, I think stem cells are doing more than just improving your mitochondria function. Because one of the hallmarks of aging, there are altogether 14 hallmarks of aging from Copenhagen Aging Meeting in 2022. And among the 14 hallmarks, there are stem cell exhaustion, there are your DNA splicing not correctly, and also like the protein folding is wrong when we age, the autophagy, or even telomere shortening. So I think for aging, it's not just one single thing. Like if you only supplement NAD or you make your NAD more in your body, yes, that will help the mitochondrial function. But it's not just that one single reaction chain in mitochondria that makes the mitochondria function as if you were 20 years old when you're 50. I think there are also a lot of other things going on inside human body when we age. So to address this whole thing as a whole, I think stem cell treatment, they actually really address more the root cause of our aging problem or the root cause of aging, because the root cause is really what our body cannot keep up with our daily activity and also to keep up with the repair and to replenish our tissue, because we need the equilibrium of regeneration and the cell death. So we need to get rid of the old tissue that's not functioning correctly, and then we need to regenerate the new one. But if our stem cell become less and less and less efficient over the years, also one of the reasons why the stem cell get less efficient is also because of mitochondrial function decline. So when you actually introduce the new stem cells from umbilical cord from a donor, that it actually, those stem cells are 0 years old. So they have the dividing capabilities. They also transfer, maybe sometimes, we don't have like really detailed study, but some studies show these stem cells actually can transfer their young mitochondria into your own body stem cells to wake them up. So there are definitely studies showing that if you grow your own body stem cells extracted from bone marrow or fatty tissue with the umbilical cord stem cells together, then it actually can waken up your own body stem cells and make them act as if they were young again. So I think that's where people get confused, because aging is a very complex process, and it cannot just be simplified to, okay, it's just because the mitochondrial function decline and the NAD decline. So even nowadays, like for biohacking community, a lot of people are not just doing NAD supplements. You're also looking into closal protein, also follistatin, also muscle function. So all these things are together. And then what's the root cause of that? I think it's very complex to answer, but I think when you use the umbilical cord stem cells, it's also a natural complex group of mesenchymal stem cells. It's not just from one single lineage. And so they can actually act in your body as a wholesome supplement or the wholesome new firewood to help your body function better.
There's been a little bit of controversy around umbilical stem cells, primarily because there's some view out there that it's not ethical practice. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think that there's an argument that due to the benefits of stem cell regeneration, that this approach should be regulated as opposed to being unregulated and then leaving it open to the grey market as such?
When people call me inquiring about stem cells, a lot of times many would ask, the first question they would ask would be, oh, is this from aborted fetus? No, it's not. So the ethically sourced umbilical stem cells are now from aborted fetuses or are not from any unethical practice, because you actually obtain the umbilical cord after the healthy baby is born, and then you take the umbilical cord, you dissect it, and all these procedures, actually, usually you get the consent from the donor before the mother gave birth to the babies, and then they consent to donate their umbilical cord. But of course, naturally in hospital, after you give birth, the baby's umbilical cord is actually medical waste. They don't really do anything with it. But nowadays, because people are getting more and more into stem cell treatment, so I don't really know in hospital, do they really just collect them and try to get the stem cells out of it? I don't know how they do it, but I do know our source, we actually only need 1 or 2 donors for 2 to 3 years, because we can grow the stem cells in our lab in Colombia. But in US, you can grow them as scientific research purpose, but you cannot use that lab expanded mesenchymal stem cell from the umbilical cord in clinical applications.
And if you are using stem cells that you've grown in your clinical lab, is that the same quality as stem cells that would be taken from a fresh umbilical cord?
So that's the other question. Some people say you should now manipulate the stem cells from the umbilical cord because once you grow in the lab, it's stressed. But actually, in reality, when you dissect the umbilical cord and to obtain the mesenchymal stem cells from the umbilical cord first, you have to use enzyme to digest the tissue so that you can get the cells out of the umbilical cord disconnected from the connective tissue, all these things. So if you don't manipulate the cells right after you isolate the mesenchymal stem cell from the umbilical cord, those cells actually, they have not been recovered enough from this whole isolation process to get them. So in US right now, I believe in Australia, I don't really know the law in Australia, but in US right now, there are companies, they just isolate the mesenchymal stem cells from the umbilical cord, and then they just cryopreserve them in the vials, and then they sell to providers saying this is unmanipulated mesenchymal stem cells from umbilical cord. So some people, they argue these cells actually are better than the lab expanded. But based on what I see, I think one main reason that you want to expand in the lab is, first, not all the donor cells grow well in the lab. So if those cells that don't grow well, you actually screen out the cells that do not function very well. So then you choose the best that grow very well. Plus, once you expand in the lab, you can expand huge amount of cells. That's why we only need 1 or 2 donors for 2 or 3 years, because you grow so much, then you can use 100 million cells, 200 million cells in one single treatment very easily. But if you don't grow them in the lab, then you can only get up to 25 million mesenchymal stem cells from one umbilical cord. So then that really limits how many cells you can get. And if you want to achieve some clinical effectiveness, efficacy for certain conditions like Parkinson's or even severe osteoarthritis from aging, you actually need at least 50 million cells. So that means if you don't expand them in the lab, then you have to obtain these 50 million cells from 2 different donors at least, or even more than 2 donors. Then in that kind of case, are you able to screen all these donors effectively? That's very difficult, because if we grow them, then we can really strictly test them. Plus, during the growth, the proliferation of the cells in the lab, we can also test whether there's any mutation during the growth incubation in the lab. So that also assures that there's no mutation in the proliferation in the lab, and then that makes the cells actually not stressed.
Makes sense and is certainly reassuring when you outline it in that way. Who is an appropriate candidate for stem cell therapy and who probably isn't?
I would say most people, healthy adults, if you're really looking to extend your health span and you even want to do early prevention and treat the root cause of aging, stem cell actually is an excellent choice, an excellent therapy you can choose from, a whole bunch of different therapies, modalities you can choose from, including helping your sleep quality improve, doing an NAD, supplementing different things related to aging. So I myself, since I started doing stem cell treatments, I have been doing stem cell infusion on myself regularly, maybe once every 3 to 6 months. But I don't have any severe clinical diagnosed condition like autoimmune or neurological conditions. I don't even have osteoarthritis. I only have one knee that has certain injuries from, say, 20 years ago, and it has been accumulating. So I'm just doing that knee occasionally, maybe once every 3 or 4 years, to prevent it from getting down the road to osteoarthritis of the knee. So that's all I'm doing. But my whole purpose is trying to do this to slow down my aging, just like adding more firewood to my burning stove so that I don't have the decline in the regenerative ability in my own body stem cells to repair tissue and to help my daily activity. And the other example is my mom. My mom is 81 years old, so she started having stem cell treatment around 76. And so my mom, even though she's 81 and she has a lot of deficiencies from birth, so she has very severe osteoporosis and a lot of other things, she actually was one of my first patients to receive stem cells after I was introduced to the stem cell lab in Colombia, and she got really good results with her conditions. And then now she actually gets it regularly, maybe once or twice a year. And recently she actually did fall but she didn't break a bone. After the fall, she started having some hip pain. And she said she couldn't really lift her leg very well. So I gave her a stem cell treatment about 1 month ago. And now she doesn't have the pain in the hip anymore. So for her, I would say it's more like trying to help her improve the quality of life in the remainder years she has, even though she has a lot of deficiencies, she has a lot of problems, but at least she doesn't need to be in pain all the time and she can still move and do her own daily activities. So that's the purpose for her. But for younger people who are relatively healthy and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing all the longevity health practices, then the stem cell treatment is actually more like icing on the cake to help your body function better.
So you mentioned, osteoarthritis, perhaps some autoimmune conditions. What conditions currently have the strongest evidence for stem cell treatment, though?
From what I've seen, actually the best clinical result are in osteoarthritis of joints like knees, hips, shoulders, and also even for acute injury in young people. I've also treated people in their 20s, even teenagers, if they had certain injuries from doing sports or they had some kind of injury from accident. And some people actually, like recently, I'm going to treat a guy, I haven't treated him yet, but he is in his 30s, but in his 20s, he fell during some kind of military training and he broke his tibia. And after that, he's already had 8 different surgeries to help that leg. And he still has so much pain in that leg. And he's done so many different therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy. Nothing has helped him up till now. So basically, he said he's looking to do stem cells too as the last resort. So stem cell treatment is not just for people who are already having conditions and already exhausted all the methods. So for my standpoint, I think people, if you can, and you're able to get this type of treatments, if you can get it early as possible for early prevention purpose, that's the best way to do it. Because when you do the early prevention, you actually can prevent the severe symptoms from arising. So that's a totally different philosophy from what we talked about earlier. In Western medicine, they only treat conditions when the symptoms already arise. So that's the other principle I talked about in the book, Regeneration Effect. And that actually is a principle, the one main principle from ancient practice in health and longevity, which is early prevention.
How accessible is this type of therapy, though, and what's the cost for getting stem cell therapy? Because from what I've heard, it can be quite expensive. Is that because it's not regulated, or is it just going to be a matter of time that when it starts to be a bit more proven, a bit more commonly used, that the price will come down?
So since I have been doing this treatment for 5 years, actually, I think the price has already come down since 5 years ago. So it's not really, but there are also certainly many clinics, they charge a lot of money if they already have a name built and they have a lot of celebrity endorsement. But that's again goes to how you do your research. So I'm actually going to write a blog on Substack about how to spot the red flags when you do your research looking for stem cell treatment and then researching about different stem cell treatment clinics. The price doesn't mean like when it's more expensive, then it's better. The main thing when you do your research, the main thing you need to really look into are the certificate of the stem cells. Because a lot of people I've talked to, even though they've already had stem cell treatments at different places, some of them, they said they didn't even know how many stem cells they got. And I do understand, like I said earlier, some clinics, they just use the stem cells that are not expanded in the lab. So they basically collect the stem cells from the umbilical cord, and then they just cryopreserve it and then sell to providers, and then provider give it to you. So a lot of them, the providers themselves, they don't even know how many stem cells are in that vial they gave you. So in that kind of case, a lot of times you can really get sort of ripped off if the vial you're getting for your treatment do not have enough quantity. Like I mentioned earlier, for certain conditions, you do need certain quantity to work well. So then in the past 5 years, I've been doing it. I think when it gets really expensive, that's when your symptoms are really severe. So for example, in Colombia, we do spinal injection for people who already have multiple spinal surgeries, and they already had a lot of disc problem, a lot of degenerative spine conditions. And their last resort, other than stem cell treatment, would be to do the spinal fusion. And some of them, their condition actually are not even suitable for spinal fusion, but because the Western medicine already ran out the choices for them or options for them, so then their surgeons would only tell them, okay, if you want to try, the only thing left is spinal fusion. But when you already at that stage, of course, the treatment itself would cost at least $20,000 because this involves anesthesiologists, neurologists to do the spinal injection. We have to have the really operation room, sterile condition, and the imaging system to do all these. So that's why it's very expensive to do that. But like I mentioned earlier, if most people start thinking about early prevention, if you start doing stem cell treatment before you even have severe back problem, when you're already, like say in your 50s or 60s, you already had some chronic back problem for say 20 years, but it's not severe enough for you to do any surgery. So stop doing, if the cortisone injection doesn't work for you or only works for you for 1 or 2 months, maybe you should consider doing stem cell treatment. In that kind of condition, at that point, maybe the stem cell treatment would only cost $10,000 to do instead of $20,000. But then when we do only one single joint, a lot of times the cost can be between $4,000 to $6,000. So the price has already come down because initially when I first started back in 2021, because we were using a different lab getting the stem cells from the lab, and then the cost from that lab is actually more expensive than where we can get the stem cells now. So now I'm also building my own lab in Colombia. So once that happens, I think the cost can be even cheaper. So that's basically the range of the cost. It can be ranging from $2,000 all the way to $30,000. But there are also a lot of well-known clinics. They will charge you at least $30,000, and sometimes they will charge you $30,000 to $50,000. But in my opinion, for most people who are really looking into helping their body to get the boost in the energy and then to facilitate all the other health and longevity practice they've been doing, I think if you do early enough to treat the early symptoms, or even you don't have any symptoms, you just do it for longevity purpose, it can be done for $5,000 to $10,000.
Which, in the scheme of things, it can be achievable for some people, but I suppose not necessarily for everyone. I mean, $10,000 is still a lot of money for most people. Is there evidence that stem cells can slow biological aging, though, or are we getting ahead of the science? What's the evidence?
I think there are evidence that, yes, when you do stem cell treatment, it can help your body. Actually, it's stimulating your own body stem cells to help repair. That's why it works so well for osteoarthritis, because it's not like the stem cells you inject into the joint that are growing into cartilage or anything that's wrong. Basically, what they do is, like I said, they actually transfer their energy to your own body stem cells, even transfer the mitochondria. Then your own body stem cells can be waken up, because when you're in 50s, 60s, your own body stem cells is also 50, 60 years old. And then they can now divide as well as the umbilical cord stem cells. So they need all these growth factors, cell signaling molecules to wake them up. So that's the other reason why some people nowadays, they actually don't do stem cells, they do exosomes. Because exosomes are also secreted by the mesenchymal stem cells, and they contain a lot of growth factor, cell signaling molecules. So they think if we use these exosomes that are acellular, we can go around the issue about regulation using stem cells. But at the same time, you can also get these cell signaling molecules into your body to stimulate, wake up your own body stem cells. So the exosomes do have certain benefits and efficacy in treating even osteoarthritis. But in my experience, when you treat osteoarthritis, or even autoimmune conditions, the best way is to use the stem cells, because once they enter your body, they can actually stay there, continuously stimulating your own body stem cells for up to 2 or 3 months before they die off. But if you use exosomes, once you infuse into your body or inject into the joint, they can only stay there for maybe a few days. And then once they're used up, they're gone. As to answer your question about the regulation about the stem cells and also the cost, I think for a lot of people, say if you cannot afford doing stem cells, then maybe you can try to do some exosome treatment that can be a little cheaper. Actually, in ancient practice, you don't need to spend millions of dollars to achieve health and longevity. And the most important thing is to connect your body to the nature, have restful night sleep and enough sleep, high quality sleep, and eat very well. Because in blue zones, all the people living in blue zones, they're in the mountain area, and then they go up and down. They don't even do any particular cardio or weight training to prolong their life, but they naturally do all these movement. They keep moving in their daily activities, and then they have very healthy diet from their own traditional. So they don't need to really to look for particular diet to help their health. That's why these areas, they have much higher percentage of centenarians than any other area in the world.
I want to explore a little bit more about exosomes in a moment, but I'd like you to walk us through the practical application of stem cell treatment. So what would someone expect if they're coming in to get some stem cell treatment for, say, osteoarthritis, as opposed to targeting improved health span?
Okay, so if you only come in, say, a lot of people, they have particular condition, like this gentleman mentioned who's only 30 years old, but he had this injury. He had a tibia fracture, complete fracture of tibia, and then had multiple surgeries. So this is basically the scar tissue formed from multiple surgery from the injury. So the osteoarthritis is also when you have pain, or if you have already had osteoarthritis for years and your pain is severe and your surgeon is telling you you need to have joint replacement, then in that kind of cases, it's also because you have chronic inflammation over a long period of time in that particular joint that is causing a lot of scar tissue, a lot of inflammatory conditions. So in that kind of condition, we focus on treating the joint. So we basically inject the stem cells directly into whichever joint is affected. And what the stem cell does once they enter that joint is actually, number one, the stem cells, they stimulate your own body stem cells to do the repair. Number two, the stem cells are proven. This is proven that's why, even Japan approved using mesenchymal stem cells to treat the host versus graft disease, because the mesenchymal stem cells can reduce inflammation, can modulate the immune system. So that's the property of mesenchymal stem cells. And because of that, it actually can reduce the inflammation in the joint where they are injected into. So since the pain is caused by inflammation from the lack of cartilage or injury, whatever reason, and then if you can reduce the inflammation, naturally the pain will reduce. And also the stem cells can stimulate your own body to repair the joint and then make whatever causing the inflammation or continuous inflammation that not happen as frequently and even not happen at all. So in that kind of case, that's why stem cells, sometimes one single joint injection, even in people age 70, can take care of the joint for up to 2 to 3 years, as long as the person is also practicing other therapies to help reduce the inflammation generally in the body. And as we all know, when we age, everybody's inflammatory markers can go up, because chronic inflammation is also another hallmark of aging.
Yeah, absolutely. With the exosomes, now explain to me, how do they differ from stem cells, other than, is it just that they last a shorter period of time compared to stem cells, or are there other points of difference between exosomes and stem cells?
So the exosome is also because it doesn't have any stem cells in it. So basically what you do is you grow the stem cells in the lab. And then these stem cells, when they're growing, they naturally secrete the vesicles. That's just the function of these type of stem cells. They're naturally doing that even inside your body. Or even your own body stem cells, when they're in your body doing their repair, they naturally secrete vesicles. That's a way of the stem cell communicating with your body's immune system and other cells. So because when you grow the cells in the lab, then you collect the upper liquid, the medium of the cell culture, then the cell culture medium doesn't have the cells, and then they're going to filter it. So basically, the stem cells are much bigger than exosomes. Stem cells are generally between 10 micrometers to 100 micrometers. But then the exosomes usually are in the nanometer size. So it's like a 10 nanometer to say 300 nanometer. So basically they use a filter small enough so they filter out the big stem cells, any remaining stem cells in the medium, and then whatever goes through the filter are the exosomes. So the exosomes are secreted by stem cells. That's why they have the growth factor, the cell signaling molecules that also can wake up your own body stem cell. That's why they also have clinical efficacy in treating a lot of these conditions. But because they don't have any stem cells in them, and that's one reason why they're more popular, because people try to tell people, oh, this is just exosomes, just protein, chemical signaling molecules. You don't need stem cells. You can get this. But in reality, once they get into the body, once the vesicle is taken up by your body cells, like your own body stem cells or other tissue cells to function better, then they're gone. Like I said earlier, if you inject the stem cells into your body, they can actually stay there for up to 2 to 3 months. So they can continuously release the exosomes needed. And also they go to tissue-specific site and secrete specific exosomes, particular for that site where they are trying to help heal faster.
What about peptides? Where do you think they fit into regenerative medicine? Is this something that you advocate for as well, or what are your thoughts on peptide use?
Even NAD is a peptide. So like even say glutathione is a peptide. So I would say peptides are also naturally occurring molecules inside our body that help cell function. So I believe, if we incorporate glutathione, NAD treatment, or even BPC 157, yes, all these things can help. But do you really need all of them to help your health and longevity? Personally, I don't think you need all of them, but I don't know how many stacks you do, because you probably know Dave Asprey, who's like the biohacker.
Yeah.
Maybe you are the equivalent in Australia as Dave Asprey. So he does every single thing.
I don't know that I do as
you heard
much as
about Brian
Dave,
Johnson.
I probably don't have as much money as Dave to be able to do as much of the biohacks that he does. But look, I certainly take quite a lot of supplements, and I do peptides as well. So I do BP 157 and GHKCU as well. I'm doing some research on Retta at the moment, exploring that. And I don't want to look at that to use it to lose weight, because that's not something that I'm focused on, but just looking at what other options there are in terms of improving my health span, and from a preventative perspective really as well, because when I look at my genetic background, there's heart disease in my family, there's osteoarthritis in my family, so I'm very mindful of what I've got there in terms of my DNA and what I need to be focusing on moving forward, so that I can try to be a bit more proactive in my health management. Doing pretty well so far, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, so I think peptides can be incorporated in addition to doing stem cells. Like if you think about all these different supplements, stacks, all these things, how many can you actually do? Of course, it depends on how much time you have, and also how much financial capability you have to do all these things. But on the other hand, I think if you do too many things, you're also confusing your body. So why don't you just choose a few that really suits your condition and really treat the root cause of your particular condition, your particular body's imbalance. And then you really don't need to spend, even $50,000 a year to actually keep your body in the optimal health and then have the maximum health span and lifespan. In my opinion, I think, if you just say you do one stem cell intravenous infusion, 100 million cells per year, that's like around $5,000. And then you add some other things like NAD, glutathione, and then I would say red light is certainly something that's very important and very beneficial to most people. But of course, it depends on certain people's genetic condition. Some people like me, I cannot do red light at night. That affects my circadian rhythm. So that's like, you need to personalize all these things. So that's why I think, generally, if somebody who really want to do early prevention and then want to help their health and longevity, maybe around $10,000 per year with the whole thing, everything you do. So if you think about it, some people, they actually spend way more than that just trying to chase all these different trends. And I don't think that's necessary.
Well, they probably spend more than that on coffee a year for some people, or alcohol. There's so maybe
Yes,
redirect
exactly.
the money elsewhere to something that's preventative for your health span, perhaps. And I take your point regarding really focusing on what you're taking and what you're targeting specifically for your body, because I've always been an advocate of testing, not guessing. And as an example, I just had all my biomarkers tested recently, and I've had to reshake up my supplement stack as a result of that, so that I can try to focus on specific areas of deficiencies. And so I think that that's an important point for people to take away as well. What are the emerging regenerative therapies that excite you even more than stem cells? Is there anything new coming through at the moment that you're aware of or that you're investigating, researching at the moment?
So for me, besides stem cells, I said red light therapy. I certainly is a avid advocate for that. So I tell a lot of my patients who actually receive stem cells from me, I tell them to continue doing red lights to help their body, because you can even enhance the stem cell treatment you get to help the stem cells function better, because the red light actually helps the mitochondria function. I'm also investigating about hyperbaric chamber, and I believe that can be beneficial for a lot of people. And the other thing I heard about from actually Dave Asprey recently, because I actually was a cruise ship with him to Antarctica in March, and I did a podcast with him on the ship. He actually was talking about clotho. So that's another
Oh,
thing
yes.
I'm exploring, because clotho protein is considered like they are very rich in your hair follicle and also in the skin. So I've been experimenting myself using clotho treatment for facial, and also I'm considering trying it for hair, because I certainly want to see what you can do to prevent getting gray hairs. So that's the other experiment I've been doing.
Maybe I need to look at that, because under all of this coloured hair that I have, there's a lot of greys, I can tell you. But I have heard of that. It'd be interesting to see, because I think Dave has said that it's reversed his grey hair, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you use NAD, that can help reverse or reduce the gray hair. And the other thing, I think if you combine stem cells with clotho, maybe you can get even better results for hair. So that's the other thing I'm experimenting. I haven't done it on my hair yet. But initially, 5 years ago, when I started doing intravenous stem cell treatment on myself, because I don't have a lot of conditions or symptoms to see what really does to me, but one of the signs I could see is that actually it does reduce the gray hairs coming out. I don't have a lot of gray hair, it's just here and there, but I can feel it actually does reduce the amount of gray hairs. But now if I have, more localized treatment using clotho plus stem cells, maybe I can really make my hair not even going gray when I'm 70. So let's wait and see, and I will report to you.
Yeah, you'll have to circle back and let me know, because it might be too late for my grey hair to be able to be reversed, because I've got quite a lot of grey hair. But anyway, I might try and see. It'll be a good experiment to try and test. Are there any ancient Chinese longevity practices that modern science is only now beginning to validate, and you're sitting there going, we told you that years and years and years ago?
Yeah, I mean, even stem cell treatment, thousands of years ago, Chinese medicine is using placenta, dried up placenta to nourish human body. So that is the same concept. And even platelet-rich plasma or stem cell treatment, like I said, the concept was very old. It wasn't new at all. Because in Chinese medicine practices, we were using your own blood. We draw the blood out and then we will shake it. The theory is like when you shake your blood in the tube, then it takes the oxygen. So it's a little bit the same concept as platelet-rich plasma. Then you re-inject that oxygenized blood from yourself back into acupuncture points to treat autoimmune conditions. So think about it. It's actually something very similar to platelet-rich plasma. And some other practices in Chinese medicine, for example, they use young boys' urine to help people.
Okay.
Because the young boys' urine actually has the kinase that actually can help a lot of cardiovascular conditions. But then you don't need to use the young boys' urine nowadays if you really want to get the natural benefit. So one natural dietary food you can take to help to get the same kind of benefit as in ancient time using young boys' urine is actually to take this dish from Japanese tradition called natto beans. So in Japan, they actually use this kind of fermented beans. They eat that every morning with breakfast. So the natto beans not only has natto kinase that can actually help your blood circulation, dissolve any plaque already formed in your blood vessel, it also has some other ingredients. According to Dave Asprey, he talked about recently. He actually had an episode of podcast just talking about natto kinase, the natto beans. I think it also has an ingredient called spermidine.
Oh, yeah.
And some other thing. So I have to look it up to tell you the exact name, but if you look it up, you will find it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I mean, I've taken spermidine before, but I certainly haven't tried natto beans, so I'll have to look at that one as well.
It tastes kind of nasty though. It's like
is it? What's it taste
because
like?
it's fermented.
Happy to
You know, if
describe
you
it.
think about, because in Chinese culture we eat fermented tofu, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of used to that kind of taste. But for
Yeah.
a lot of Western people, it really tastes nasty. Or do you like kimchi? Or do you
I do.
like any fermented food?
I do. I do. I
Because a
like
lot of Western
kimchi.
people, they don't like they don't like kimchi because they think that also smells bad.
Well, I'm a Balkan heritage, so I suppose I grew up with some fermented foods. So, we ate a lot of sauerkraut and pickles and, those sorts of foods with our main meals. Yeah, and I do actually like kimchi. And here in Australia, we've got a really great organic
Okay.
source of different types of sauerkrauts with different flavors as well. So there's like a seaweed type flavor, and then there's like a turmeric one that they do, and which is great for anti-inflammation. And yeah, so there's different options. I suppose I've got an acquired palate for it. Maybe, like you said, not everybody tends to like fermented foods.
And if you really want to do natto bean yourself, you can actually ferment it yourself as long as you get the inoculation. They
Yeah.
inoculate for the natto bean, then you can just get the soybean yourself and do it yourself. And I've done that before, so I know it.
Okay. You might have to send me the recipe on how to do it.
It's actually easy, but then after you made it, also, you have to have that acquired taste to eat it. But since Japanese, they've been eating
Yeah.
it for thousands of years, so I guess everybody can learn to eat it, right? If you know there's the benefit.
Well, hey, trust me, some of the things that I've actually consumed in the bid for improving my health, some of the things have been really nasty.
Yeah,
And when you think about some of the, the homeopathic remedies and so on, and herbal remedies that naturopaths might make up for you, in the liquid forms, and they can be quite, and in Chinese medicine as well.
And also mention herbal formulas. So there are also many, many herbs in Chinese medicine that they actually can stimulate your own body stem cells as well. So one example would be nota ginseng. So it's a kind of herb that also used in Chinese medicine a lot to help promote circulation. So it can be used for preventing cardiovascular conditions related to aging as well. So there are many, many things you can do, but for my personal take, I think for most people, if you have a very good diet and then you control your blood sugar, blood cholesterol, blood pressure very well, of course, I think a lot of people, even though they pay attention to their diet and exercise, all these things, they still develop high cholesterol and blood pressure conditions in their 50s or 60s. So I know those people as well. And some of them, they simply just get on the medication thinking that will help them. And I really don't think that's the best route to go.
No, but I think it's also because, particularly in Western society, we've been conditioned, right, in terms of that reactive approach to treating some of these diseases, because we think, oh well, let's just take a pill and that's going to stop the symptom, but it actually is just putting a band-aid on it. And I kind of feel like it's percolating there, simmering away underneath that band-aid, and it's actually creating more issues because you're not addressing the root cause, which is your philosophy as well. So it's, I think it's a consideration
Yes.
for people to kind of explore that preventative approach rather than focusing on just taking a reactive approach and taking a tablet that's going to just band-aid the symptom.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, taking the pills is just easy for them. So for blood pressure, cholesterol, actually, there are wholesome natural food in Chinese traditional that you can use to help that as well. So that's something I also discussed extensively in my book, wholesome versus isolation, basically, natural ingredient versus pharmaceutical pills.
Yeah, completely agree. Look, it's been absolutely fascinating chatting to you, Dr. Yi Song. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you, particularly if they want to get some stem cell therapy?
They can just go to stemcelltherapyexperts.com. That's my website. And then they can actually contact me by phone, text, email, or even there's an online form they can fill out. And then we can actually continue the conversation about what they're looking for help with and how we can help them. We actually also do 15-minute complimentary consultation on any people's inquiry. And if they are interested in learning more about different treatments in stem cells, what kind of conditions, they can also go to my YouTube channel, and I have a podcast called Stem Cell Talk as well. So they can get a lot of extensive information there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
I am so happy to be talking about biohacking. And that's actually one of my passion as well, but I'm not that extreme. And I really believe simpler approaches, but you need to be holistic, combining all the different treatments suitable to your particular body, not just following what other people are doing.
Completely agree. Thanks so much. Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.